I'm Gail Muller, adventurer, educator, chronic pain survivor, and most recently, ADHD diagnosee. In 2019, I hiked the iconic Appalachian Trail in the USA, over 2,000 miles across national forests and mountains. I have lived with chronic pain and invisible illness for many years, and at one point was told that I'd be in a wheelchair at 40 and unable to walk long distances. I managed to find a resolution, rehabilitate my body, and get back out into the great outdoors. And now I'm taking to the trails in Cornwall, the place where I was born and grew up. 250 miles of footpaths around the county, the trackways, the smuggling routes, the trade routes, the things that connected our communities and cultural heritage through generations. Oh, this is very cool. I'm using these footpaths to take me back to my roots, the roots that lie above the soil and will show me where I have come from. These footpaths exist because they are what we hunted along, hiked along, traded, met, married and fought along throughout our history. The lifeblood of why and how we are where we are today. And these rocks above me are humongous. How would they have got them in place? I want to share with you how amazing it is to get about on your own 2 feet and to understand more about how being outdoors and exploring our natural environment can bring comfort and hope. Bill. You know, actually, it's really good to feel small. I'm going to be discovering some of Cornwall's lost and forgotten trails. This, you can see that the path was there, and lost and forgotten stories. Do you know why it was built here, the technology?
Look up there.
That's incredible. This is the Hallam Town! Feisty, pagan and amazing!
The ingenuity of the engineering, breathtaking.
Oh, wow! It's strong. Cheers, 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 cheers. The end. I can see the end. So join me as I get unlost in Cornwall.
I'm starting today on the north side of the UK's most southerly river, the historic and beautiful Helford Estuary. This part of my trek will take Bill and I through the heart of the Lizard Peninsula on the other side, home to some of the most isolated communities in Cornwall and the most southerly part of the UK. But I've got to cross the river to get to it, and for once, I'm getting a lift. I'm at a tiny village called Helford Passage, but known to all as the Ferryboat, thanks to the name of the pub, which is at the heart of this picturesque cove. Since the 16th century, it's been providing shelter and refreshment for travellers waiting to board the famous Helford River ferry.
The ferry connecting the north and south banks of the Helford Passage has been running continuously since the Middle Ages. It's been a vital lifeline to these communities through history, bringing produce to the markets of Falmouth. In the Middle Ages, horses and carts used to come to the riverbank. The driver and the produce would be loaded on the ferry and the horse would have swum behind. And now I'm going to get on the ferry, but my dog is not going to swim behind. Come on, Bill!
No one really knows how old the Helford Passage ferry is.
First Felix!
But the Domesday Book of 1086 does refer to a safe crossing at Helford Passage.
No, it's not a life jacket.
So this watery pathway has been working for at least 1,000 years.
How about that? How about that, boy?
The crossing saves a journey of about 14 miles round the head of the river. So for hikers and travellers like me, it's the perfect way to save time. And today, it's a lovely way to mark the start of a new leg of my journey, onto the Lizard Peninsula. Bound by the ocean on 3 sides and almost completely separated from the rest of Cornwall, the Lizard is one of my favourite places in the world. Rugged, wild, packed with history and folklore, it has countless miles of footpath, and I intend to walk a good few of them. I'm going to head inland once on the other side, and then cut through the heart of the peninsula all the way to the coast, to a very special but little-known cove. Then I'll be taking a slight detour, making my way to the town of Helston just in time to celebrate a very Cornish festival that there's no way I'm missing.
Thanks. Super.
The ferry lands at Helford Village, one of the river's many natural harbours and once a bustling port for trade with Europe, so busy it even had its own customs house. Now, this small village is a mecca for holidaymakers, known for its cosy thatched cottages that dot the water's edge.
A lovely haircut.
Produce was taken to and from Helford on the paths and tracks that fanned out across the peninsula. I'm travelling inland heading west, and I'm trying to do it using one of the original ancient routes that are no longer on today's maps. The first maps of Cornwall show roads that probably emerged during the 12th century, linking one Cornish market town to another. But the Lizard was always different in one important aspect. There weren't, and still aren't, any towns. Each village and settlement was connected by a series of primitive roads, lanes, trackways and paths that between them spanned the peninsula, providing the vital network for communication and trade. While some of these ancient trackways are still in use today, many featured on the first maps of the Lizard are deemed as lost. They've been left off our modern maps. And there's a push by the Ramblers Association to try and bring some back into use. They are publishing ancient maps and getting the public to record if the paths are still visible or accessible.
It existed on the Ramblers maps, but not on these maps.
And it's already proving tricky.
Bill can't take any more mapping. We're here. Footpath goes here alongside of us. And on the Ramblers map, there's a historic route that leads across this beautiful meadow behind a private gate. We have no legal right of way, but it just shows us how many paths are missing, taken back into private ownership for people who may have bought a property and had no idea that there are historic ways crisscrossing their land. There is a footpath which we can take. It's the well-trodden path. Bill?
In fact, more than 49,000 miles of footpaths are now missing from modern maps in England and Wales.
Cut up to the right here.
And 9,000 miles of them
Come on, Bill, this way.
are here in southwest England.
So I'm genuinely excited about this because the other lost paths that we've looked for, we haven't seen any remnant of them. So they've been a mowed lawn or a meadow in a private house. This though, you can see that the path was there. So if you look at the map, you can see the arrow, and if I turn to look at the lost path, hang on, bear with, here we are, scrolling right in, we can see that where the lost path goes, if I turn the arrow and you can see the point goes up this path here, which is exactly up that track there, that's now overgrown at the very top. Exciting, we can't do it because it's blocked with some trees fallen, but at least we know it still exists for the eye, not just the imagination.
Accessible or not, the history of our most southerly landmass is reflected in the chaotic web of the trackways that cross it. The Lizard has always been an agricultural heartland, with its unique system of winding lanes and roads connecting farming communities that date from prehistoric times. This area is dotted with Iron Age farming settlements called rounds. The path I'm on leads me to one of them. Situated at the top of a hill, Heligi is a collection of cottages. I'm told that they surround one of the most mysterious places I've never heard of. Right in the middle is something that has puzzled experts for decades.
This is Heligi Fugu. It's Cornish for cave. Archaeologists call them souterrain, and you can find them in Ireland, in Scotland, in Western Cornwall, but no one really knows why they exist. They remain a mystery.
There are over 2,000 ancient farming settlements like this in Cornwall, but only a few fugus across the county have been found. Heligi is thought to be the largest and best surviving of the lot.
Wow, the temperature's already dropped so much from standing outside. And from the entrance, it looks like just this one room, but I can already see that there are 2 passageways. There are some really chunky spiders. Okay, let's go. Bill, are you coming? Wow, the temperature's dropping even further. And it opens up to head height after being a bit of a crawl space. And these rocks above me are humongous. How would they have got them in place here? The intricacy of all the tiny rocks that support the cracks all the way along to make sure these don't fall. I had no idea it would be this big in here.
The Fugu is a series of underground passages, and I'm currently standing in the main passage, which is about 20 metres long. There were other entrances and exits to the Fugu at each end, but these are now closed off. It's astonishing to think about how they constructed something of this size all those years ago.
There are so many layers, and every one has got tiny rocks in between supporting each of the layers. Still it goes on, and it's getting narrower. Oh, the end. I can see the end.
Some Fugus were used as refuges for people and possessions if raiders were ever to attack. Could Heligi have been built as a place to come and hide in an invasion?
I have no idea what this place would have been used for. It's been here since the 4th or 5th century BC, and it's built with such precision. Could this Fugu have been used to store food? The round that this Fugu is built as a part of only supported 5 or 6 different families. It doesn't make sense for something of this magnitude to have been built for a really small settlement. For ritualistic purposes, you might expect to see some markers showing ceremonial worship. You might expect to see some remnants of graves or burials, but there are none. So the purpose of this Fugu is obscured by history, not passed down in texts, books, or oral history. There are many different explanations, but for me, I still just don't know. Oh, daylight. That was something else.
This cave is all that remains of our early settlers.
Whew, that feels good.
And it's sad to think that its real purpose may be lost forever. I'm heading just a couple of miles south into the middle of the peninsula, following the most direct route on the marked footpaths. Despite its isolation from the rest of the county, the peninsula would have been buzzing with movement across the ages, as people travelled along paths and tracks to meeting points, markets, fairs and ceremonial grounds. Most ancient tracks on the Lizard cross through one place, and that's Goonhilly Downs. Goonhilly is a ritualistic landscape, hugely sacred to those who resided here and home to a very special site. There aren't many man-made things that have been here long enough to see the building of the Fugu, but this one takes us back even further.
Dry Tree Menhir is a standing stone 3 metres high, yet it descends another 1 metre down into the ground. It's thought to be around 3,000 years old, but no one really knows why it's even here. What we do know is that it's clearly a vital meeting point and marker in what is an ancient, vast and ceremonial landscape.
The menhir is named after a gallows tree which once stood beside it. The stone dates back to the Bronze Age, around 1,000 years earlier than Heligi Fugu. Our ancestors who placed it upright in the ground incredibly transported it over 2 miles from the nearby Crowser Downs quarry, where this enormous piece of gabbro rock has been traced back to. Legend had it that there was treasure buried underneath the standing stone. So, in the late 19th century, local men toppled it in search of the bounty. They left empty-handed, and the stone stayed on its side until after the turn of the century. During World War I, soldiers took 3 feet off the top of the stone for road building, giving it its angular tip as a result. It was finally restored in 1928 and has stood happily undisturbed ever since. But for the last few decades, it's been joined by some rather large neighbours.
This spot has long been a site for communications from one world to another, for reaching up and beyond, out into the cosmos. And another significant marker of this landscape are these. Because we are actually standing right next to Goonhilly Satellite Earth Station.
Goonhilly Downs is where Neolithic heathland meets modern communication. Plonked right next to the standing stone and amongst the Bronze Age barrows, Goonhilly Earth Station was built in the 1960s and was one of the first 3 satellite stations in the world. From our Bronze Age ancestors right up to the modern day, I'm keen to find out what it is about this area that makes it such a central meeting point on the peninsula, and why it is so perfectly positioned to connect with the skies above.
Goonhilly is developing its capacity to be the first commercial deep space communications station. The future points upwards to a sky full of possibilities.
I'm here today to meet Sean Richardson,
Hey Sean!
the Goonhilly Station manager,
Very well.
whose job it is to manage everything from high-tech antennas to ancient burial mounds. Sean's promised to give me a tour of the station, and because the site is so big, unusually for me, I'm in a car.
Do you have Michael J. Fox's hover skateboard in there?
Absolutely, yeah, we've all got one of those.
You've all
moving
got
around
one.
the site.
Is that how you get around site?
I'm sorry, we've got to use the Renault today.
Goonhilly was originally built by the General Post Office, which later became BT. It fell into disrepair over the years, but in 2014 it was bought and has since undergone a rather expensive revamp.
Do you know why it was built here, the technology, and when it's such a special site of historical relevance?
Historically, it was built here because it's the highest point of the lizard. Part of the geology of the site is we're on serpentine rock. We're also miles and miles away from built-up areas, so the area is quiet in terms of radio frequency noise, but also the bedrock is strong enough to hold a structure like Goonhilly 1 in front of us, which is 1,100 tonnes of steel and concrete.
Wow.
Built in 1962, Satellite 1, also known as Arthur, made its historical debut in 1969 when it broadcast the sound and images to the world as Neil Armstrong took his first steps on the moon. Goonhilly went on to become the largest satellite station in the world, with over 60 dishes. Currently being repurposed for space exploration, Arthur's future role will be delving deep into unknown galaxies and studying black holes.
Hi, alpacas. Oh, and sheep. Look at how cute those goatee sheep are.
They're golden Guernsey goats.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Local farmer brings his rare breed beef cattle here, and what we've seen over the past couple of years is we're actually uncovering rare plants and flowers.
By having them graze.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And whilst they reveal what's beneath our feet, behind them is one of the world's most powerful antennas.
Pretty impressive.
It's a monster.
Designed to listen deep into the cosmos above our heads.
32-metre antenna.
No, the pokey bit out the front.
The pokey bit out the front, I don't know.
So this is the satellite that can or is tracking spacecraft around Mars.
This is the antenna that's tracking the satellites. It'll track satellites in deep space, spacecraft around the moon and Mars. And it moves up and down. If you look at the back of it now, you can see a serration there, a tooth. It's basically there's a motor attached to a big cog which moves it up and down. And this thing moves fast enough to track the satellites that we're interested in. Burial mound on our right-hand side, which is we're working with Cornwall Council to uncover. Luckily, with all the activity that's happened over the years, they've managed to preserve the important archaeological sites here.
And for my final stop of the tour,
Thank you.
Sean is taking me for a quick look inside Mission Control.
Thanks so much, Sean. This is
He's called ahead, so anything top secret is covered up.
Oh, wow. This is where it all happened.
Absolutely. On the right-hand side of the screen, there are a number of spacecraft in orbit.
For someone like me who's done a fair amount of long-distance hiking, some of it in the States, if I'd had a fall and needed to call somebody and press my SOS button, that's GPS, isn't it? Gone to a satellite. Is there any chance that from all the way over there, my rescue signal would have pinged through my home county to get me help?
There's so much goes through here that there's every possibility that signals may have been routed through here.
No. Mind-blowing. If you look to the future, future space tech, cutting edge, you must be working with a whole variety of people to do with space and tech and aerospace. Absolutely. I'm wondering if potentially Elon Musk, perhaps he's been calling in to chat to you about how the future looks?
Can't really answer that one.
Any smirks that might lead me in that? No smirks, no smirking. No smirking.
Nothing more to see here. Onwards! You can look at the Goonhilly Reserve as you drive past and probably think there's nothing worth exploring except the satellite station. But, like the standing stone shows, don't be fooled. This Neolithic heathland has been central to the lives of the lizard's inhabitants from ancient to modern day. And the evidence is scattered throughout these 3,000-acre downs. This ritualistic landscape was hugely sacred to those that lived here, and it's dotted with Bronze Age barrows, the burial mounds of Bronze Age men. There's one that still today has special significance.
This is Crookdrannoch, which marks the highest point of these downs, which, if I'm honest, isn't particularly high, as I've ascended maybe a metre. It's marked here unceremoniously by a trig point, but the view is still pretty good.
The Bronze Age communities who created this burial mound lived on the edge of the downs, where the soil is thicker and the water accessible. The downs were also perfect summer grazing for livestock, so the farmers herded their animals here for the hot season. The area was considered of such economic importance that it still shapes how the parishes in this area draw their boundaries today. To make it fair for all, Goonhilly Downs was cut into 7 roughly triangular segments claimed by the 7 parishes.
And just like a Trivial Pursuit wheel, the corners of those parishes meet right here.
This burial mound is also a waymark along an important medieval track, the most ancient one on the Lizard.
Bill, look!
But it's no longer visible here, so I'm going to see if I can track it down.
Okay, we'll lift you up.
And there's no better way to try and find a path than from above.
Goonhilly is also home to the remains of RAF Drytree, a radar station that was built here during World War II. And we are standing on top of the old receiver station, which doesn't only give us a beautiful view of Goonhilly Downs, but a 360-degree panoramic vista of the entire Lizard Peninsula.
The remains of over 50 structures are scattered across the site here at the north end of the Downs. But I'm looking for a track heading south, which should emerge from somewhere amongst this maze of abandoned buildings.
Look at the texture.
That formed part of the station.
I love that nature's reclaimed it, though. It feels very peaceful and quiet, unlike it would have been back in the day. Come on, Bill. Let's head off and see what else we can find.
This place is incredible. There is something to discover at every turn. Ammunition storage, bunkers, transmitter bases. I start to feel like some sort of Indiana Jones and get slightly sidetracked.
This is very cool. Oh, that's beautiful. What do you think, Bill? It's like we're in Lord of the Rings or Labyrinth. Come on, Bill.
Finally, as I emerge from the labyrinth, I spot the track I've been looking
This way,
for.
Bill, look. I'm standing on what's believed to be the earliest recorded trackway on the Lizard Peninsula, first mentioned in an Anglo-Saxon charter in 977. It's hard to know where this ancient trackway starts and ends. In the intervening years, RAF Drytree and Goonhilly Earth Station have been built, obscuring the original route. But what is known is that the tracks came from two different directions and converged at the trig point. It then moves south through Goonhilly Downs towards the coast.
No matter which direction I take now, all tracks lead to the ocean, as this rugged peninsula juts out into the English Channel. The Lizard looks like Cornwall, but the bedrock underneath the ground I'm walking on isn't the same as the rest of Cornwall. It should be miles beneath the ocean floor. And pretty much everywhere else on the planet, it is. The Lizard is actually the result of two continental plates colliding, with one side being forced up to the Earth's surface. This means that a huge section of the peninsula is actually made up of the Earth's crust itself, inaccessible unless brought to the surface by nature's forces. This stuff normally lies several miles beneath the ocean floor. Its scientific name is ophiolite, and as it was exposed to seawater, a type of rock known to all as serpentine was formed. This has become the Lizard's geological calling card. I've come to the small cove of Poltesco, not even signposted from the main road. But for a brief period in the 19th century, serpentine made it a powerhouse of the Cornish economy. And meeting me on the footpath are Robin Bates and Anthony Hitchens Unwin, who can tell me more about how this industry impacted the area. For centuries, serpentine blocks were used to build the Lizard's homes and farm buildings. But once discovered by those outside of Cornwall, demand skyrocketed, and that fueled a major industry in the area.
I love this bridge very much as well. It's like the skeleton of the ship.
The buildings here are the remains of the Poltesco Serpentine Factory, which was established in around 1866 by the Lizard Serpentine Company.
It is so serene and peaceful here, and I'm imagining it wouldn't always have been that way.
No, it would have been an incredibly noisy place.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking now over towards the Serpentine factory, and over there was the forge where they would be making all the equipment.
Oh, so bang, bang, tink, tink, tink. You wouldn't have had people having a nice wander through for their afternoon walk.
This is an industrial area.
Here's the water wheel pit.
Oh, wow.
So where I'm standing here, in 1860, 1870, over my head would have been a gantry carrying water. It would be falling on a wheel that was 30 feet in diameter.
The power for cutting, turning and polishing the stone came from this water wheel, powered by stream water, which was trapped in a huge hand-dug hole called a leat. The leat at Poltesco is visible, but now overgrown. Water flowed in one end and was trapped, and the only way out was through one small hatch at the other end. As the leat got fuller and fuller, the pressure built up, giving the water the oomph it needed to shoot down the gantry and turn the enormous water wheel.
From that wheel, there would have been a big axle going seawards, and from that axle, there'd be a load of cogs running all the machinery of the factory. The water comes from Goonhilly Downs. The ingenuity of the engineering is breathtaking.
The serpentine was quarried locally, and boulders large and small were brought here on foot or by horse and cart.
You walk up that track now, it's a very, very lumpy track. And if you look down at the rocks that are under your feet, making it lumpy, those rocks, many of them are serpentine, which have fallen off the carts that came from the lizard quarries, and they're still there today.
So we're walking every day over that history.
Yeah.
The serpentine industry began to boom after Prince Albert was shown the stone when he was cruising around the Cornish coast in 1846. Once it had royal approval, serpentine grew as a fashionable material. Polished and shaped, serpentine became known as the English marble, and Poltesco was one of the places wealthy Victorians came to buy it.
So carriages would have brought customers there, and there are a couple of double doors at the top. There's your showroom, there's your mantelpieces.
There were shops in Paris and Oxford Street with serpentine storefronts made here.
Queen Victoria's residence, Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, serpentine fireplace, still there, came from here.
Wow.
Serpentine was very rare and it's beautiful, polished up. It's stunning. There's nothing like it.
Look up there. You can see that engraved stone.
Yeah.
LSCL.
Yep.
Lizard Serpentine Company Limited, 1866, which is just about the date that this factory was established.
In just a few decades, serpentine lost out to the marble trade. Marble was cheaper to produce and more hardy. In 1893, as demand slumped, the factory closed down and the valley fell silent. It's no surprise that this rugged cape is prized by researchers and highly protected. The history and makeup of the lizard has intrigued geologists for hundreds of years.
Hey, look at that, Bill. Serpentine all over the track. Come on, Bill, come.
This bedrock is what makes the lizard strong enough to hold the weight of 60-ton antennas. It's what gives Goonhilly Downs its unique soil and characteristic flora.
Come on, pup.
Today, this geology still dictates where and how humans can settle across this peninsula.
The Lizard Peninsula is a tapestry of pathways from ancient times up to the modern day today. By learning about the people who've walked on them before you, it brings that rich history alive. And it makes me feel connected from the ground up to the fields and the ocean that I see every day. And the best thing of all is, I've done it all with my own 2 feet. Where are we going, mate? Bill.
The villages here are the most remote in Cornwall, and I'm following the coastal path round to one of them. The small fishing village of Cadgwith, where I'll be heading back inland to stop for the night. Tomorrow is a very special day in the Cornish calendar, and I need to make sure I can get there in time. A rare night of rest and hot water means I'm ready at first light. I'm saying goodbye to Bill for the morning, as it's going to be super busy with crowds of people, so not the sort of thing he'd enjoy. I'm heading to the market town of Helston, the gateway to and from the Lizard, and the only town between here and northern France.
Helston is Britain's most southerly town, renowned for its famous Flora Day. Townspeople dance through the streets and the houses to celebrate the triumph of spring over winter.
This is the first Flora Day in 2 years due to COVID, which means it's going to be big.
The roots of Flora Day run deep in Helston. It's a day that every local is involved in. And as any historian will tell you, it's the most important day of the year for people who live here. In fact, I think that Helstonians would give up their Easter, their Christmas, and every other holiday of the year. If they could only have one, it would be Flora Day.
30,000 people have been known to descend on Helston for Flora Day, a town with just over 11,000 residents.
There's drumming coming from the bottom of the hill in the distance, and I can feel the crowds just swept past me to get down there to see if they could have the first glimpse of this morning's Hallam Tow dance.
They come to watch a series of 5 dances, which start at 7 in the morning and don't stop until 7 in the evening.
This
Hal and Tau features a range of Cornish characters, including St George, the Dragon, and Cornwall's patron saint, St Piran. By the end of this chaotic dance, St George has slayed the dragon and St Piran has seen off the devil. The dancers then move on to reenact their show at other points in the town. And next, in stark contrast, is the children's dance.
The children's dance is all local school children, and they practice for weeks to make sure their dance is rehearsed perfectly. And it's one of the most exciting parts of the school year for all of them. There are about 1,000 children that take part in this dance. They all have different flowers in their hair to represent the different schools they come from. And everyone wears Lily of the Valley, which is Helston's flower. It takes so much organisation to make it work properly. Goodness knows how they do it all in order. It's astonishing. They look so beautiful.
The dance sort of ends in good-natured confusion. When the band gets so far away, dancers can't really hear them anymore.
Soon people will start separating from the middle of the road to the sides onto the pavement when the midday dance comes through. All the ladies will be done up in their finery as if they're at a royal event, and the gents will be wearing their top hats and black suits looking super smart. I can't wait. To dance in this one, you must be officially invited, and to be the lead four in any of the dances, you must be Helston born. For an internationally renowned affair, it's actually very local.
By the end of the day, the band will have walked 60 miles and played nearly 1,000 refrains of the faddy, the tune that accompanies the dances. My last stop at today's festival is a bit of a Helstonian tradition, and one best saved for the end of the day.
Behind me is the Blue Anchor pub, the only place in the world where they brew Spingo, an ale that comes in 3 strengths. It's brewed from their own well water, and legend has it when it was first made, it was laced with magic mushrooms. Goodness knows what that must have been like in this chaos. They sell real cockles here and pickled eggs.
What strength are you getting?
Medium, moyenne, I think, or Strawman, just to call it a day. Can I have a pint of medium Spingo, please?
Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. Bloody handsome. Job's a good one.
How is it?
It's strong. Cheers, 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 cheers.
It definitely has a happy kick to it.
Oh, you're Salty Seagull. Yeah. I've seen you on there.
I even meet one of my followers who recognises me.
Filter it.
And then things start to get very Cornish.
Are you?
Yes.
I'm from Falmouth.
Are you?
Yes.
Somebody
bloody gotta be. Now, my uncle was Ian Cormack, married to Sue. Helston, Florida, you have delivered, and it's time for me to head off onto the next leg of my trip. It's going to be hard for me to pull myself away from Helston, but I have many miles to walk yet, and many people still to meet. Cheers, me beauty. Oi, oi, oi!